Hello, and welcome to the Long View Podcast, a podcast that takes a closer look at the games people play. I am Joe Sallin, hosting this episode of the Long View with my co-host TC Reed. TC, how you doing today?
Oh man, it's just the two of us. It's like intimate time. I'm kind of looking forward to this. Just me and Joe time. Ha!
I laugh because if I'd made a different sound there, it could have been really awkward. Like, TC. Yeah. So since we didn't make it awkward, let's go there. Let's just go there. Why not? TC here has a big day tomorrow coming up. It is the advent of the dawn of a new age in your parenting.
Oh, good Lord, yeah.
You have a daughter, and she is going to be having her quinceañera.
Yeah,
the 15th birthday party.
1 year away from 16. 1 year away from driving. I think I'm gonna be a different man next winter. So whenever you see me next time on The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, I'm gonna be like just a completely different person. I'll be like, oh.
Yeah. TC is it's gonna be all gray, and it's just it's gonna be somebody who's been there, who's seen it all. Hopefully.
Well. Yeah, or I just had enough. Maybe.
Well, TC and I here are the regular co-hosts of the Long View podcast, which if you listened to the Long View before, you expect it to be about a single game for the entire episode. You know, we bring on some excellent guests, people who understand a game inside and out, and they tell us why that game runs so fantastically, gives us the long view of the game. And today's episode is a different structure. We are going to be looking at the games from an entire calendar year and just giving an overview of those games. But in long view fashion, these are not games that just came out. We're looking at the games that were released not this year, but last year. And we're looking at them as we approach the turning over of a new year. So we are going to be looking at 2019 very soon. Actually, 2 weeks from today is going to be New Year's Eve, which is crazy to think about. That we've only got a few days left here before our Christmas break and a couple of weeks left before we're already in 2019. So right now we're taking a look backwards at 2017. We did this with the games that were released at Essen in the year, and some of those will make it onto this list. But there's a lot of other games outside of the scope of Essen that we're going to really round out this discussion talking about those games. TC, I know that you have made a top 10 of your own as well as predictions for what you expect to see from me. So we'll see whether or not you have assessed your co-host well. For me, I could have looked for the game that had the most controversy on Board Game Geek from 2017 and been like, TC, I think this will be your number one. And I wonder if that wouldn't be true, because TC, you do tend to be attracted towards games that somebody tells you, I don't know what I think.
Yeah, it's pretty much. And, in terms of this episode, I've always enjoyed it because Jeff came up with the idea way back in the day of, everyone does the end of the year thing for the current year. And, being the long view, just do something a little different to do it the previous year. And when I took over hosting with him and then eventually I'll drag you along for the ride, Joe, because why not? It was a good idea because it was different, and there's so much content out now. It usually takes a full year just to digest what happened the year before. And so, we put a list together, reflect on the games we played, maybe reflect on the games we hadn't played, because I got a little disappointments. And most of my disappointments are games after 2 years I still haven't been able to play. So it's a personal disappointment for me. And and of course, I always rubberneck the train wreck games. Hence, we have a new category this year, which is the biggest WTF game of 2017, because it took a whole year just for me to recover from it. Just what the heck. So yeah, I'm looking forward to your games. I'm pretty sure I know what your number one is, if not your top five. It's definitely in your top five. At least 2 or 3 of them are in the top 5. And I like doing this one because I typically am not a Euro gamer. So when we do the Essen game, my Essen list is almost entirely different than what
I by contrast, audience, it would be most pinholed into that Eurogamer moniker. I'm not gonna admit it myself, but people look at my taste and say I'm a Eurogamer. Oh hell, I'm a Eurogamer. Fine.
Well, and plus it gives me a chance to give, because while Euro games typically don't make my top 10, I still give them the due because I still enjoy them quite a bit. I mean,
yeah,
they're good games. It's just they're usually not in my personal wheelhouse, and that's okay. This gives me a chance to diversify and tell you what else came out and what I enjoyed in that year. Joe kind of repeats himself, but that's okay. It's all good. Good games are worth hearing twice. I guarantee you, good games are worth hearing twice.
Yeah. I'm not reinventing the wheel here every other year, TC. By the way, I think TC's now on to a dodecahedron for his wheel. He's not quite there. He's gonna eventually get to the point where it's basically just a round shape. It just has the illusion of round. But yeah, I definitely am still playing many of the same games from 2017. My overall thoughts on the year of 2017 are that it was a massive year. I think that looking at the releases in 2018, the ones that I was most excited in 2018 have largely been continuations, expansions, next in the series for games that were released in 2017. Strangely enough, I just keep on finding more to dig into in 2017. I think that it's a year that deserves this episode more so than any other. And I'm just wondering, TC, I put at number one for you. I'm just going to go ahead and drop the bag, let the cat out of the bag right to start with. It's a game by Bruno Faiduti, released in 2017. Called Kama Sutra, which it's every round in the adult party game. A random Kama Sutra position is drawn, and each couple must assume the position. Wow, it says that. Must assume the position. Then push against one another to pop the balloon placed between them.
I think you actually threatened this game to me if I showed up to WBC with Jeff, that we would have to play it together. And as funny as how this game does exist, and I actually saw it as our board game store, I was blown away. I was like, really? Holy cow. So it does exist. It is by the designer you said, and it is a real thing. And, maybe me and Carissa will give it a whirl and give you a review. Man. It'll have to be safe for and not safe for work.
Yeah, not safe for work. Don't try to bring this one around. Don't bring this one to a public game night. I don't want to be running that public game night when you walk in with it. It's very and all in good fun and everything. But holy crud.
Yeah, that might be a contender for a WTF game of 2017, man.
Well, it's not the one you're going to talk about.
That's not the one. No, but if I would have known about that one, this would give it a run for its money.
Juicy stuff to come here. So, let's start squeezing a little bit of that juice out, TC. You have a list of 10 games. Before we get to the juicing in this episode, thanks to our sponsor, Game Surplus. Check them out at GameSurplus.com, where they are bringing the world of board games to you. There is podcast picks there. You should check them out because you like this stuff you're listening to. So support them. By supporting them, you support us. And anyway, it's also just a great class act. Check them out. And TC, go ahead now. Kick off the top 10 of 2017.
Okay, so I have various. I'm a list guy. I like making lists, and when I usually think about games and look at my games I've played, they usually invariably go to a list. So I have a few lists I want to do. The first one I want to do is the biggest what the heck game that came out in 2017. A game that was, I think you got a good contender with that Kama Sutra because I completely spaced that one. But mine was, and I'm still recovering from actually seeing this in existence. And it's not even a board game, even though it has the name board game in the title. And that is Deadly Premonition, the board game.
Oh, yeah.
I am not going to even go into who published it or who designed it, because last I looked into it, the designers were unknowns. The publisher was who the heck knows. I did go into far to see if it still had a website, and it does. And there's one left on Amazon. Come on, guys. Oh. There's one left on Amazon. This game is nuts because it's based on one of the worst Xbox 360 games I ever played in my life. Someone decided to turn it into a board game. It's actually a card game and doesn't have a board. It's got roll cards that literally are only used to role play with, have no formal function within the game itself. The only useful thing that came out of it is a coffee mug I still use, which I'm using now, the A&G Diner mug, because someone who I still loosely term my friend who got it for me kickstarted the whole thing, and I think that was literally the only useful thing to come out of it, except maybe the map that came in the game that's used for the video game, because the video game didn't have any map in it at all. It was the craziest, I was out of left field thing I've ever seen in my life. And for that alone, that actually made into print, and you can still get it now if you're morbidly curious about it. It's not on any other top 10 list. It's not even on a disappointment or worse, because it is in a league of its own, as far as I'm concerned. That's my biggest what the heck game of 2017. Like I said, nice. I think I got a good contender with that Kama Sutra, because when I first heard that, I thought it was a freaking joke. I thought it was announced on April's Fool's Day or something, but I think between those two, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a game that is like, what the heck is this thing?
Well, I think, honestly, TC, your what the heck game is the more what the heck game. I think that just listening to the description of Kama Sutra sets you up for it being able to imagine the entire experience. Now, Deadly Premonition, from what I understand, is like essentially playing a gigantic question mark.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, including the biggest question mark is why I'm playing it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my what the heck game. So, and compiling a list, I also came across some games that were like really big in 2017, but really didn't click for me for various reasons, up to and including. It was a hype game that people had that by the time I got around to wanting to play it, they had gotten rid of it, and I wasn't able to get a hold of to play it. So I have 5, kind of 6 games on this list. So my first biggest disappointment was a game that had just all this hype around it. It was supposed to be the Splendor killer. It was supposed to like just completely replace Splendor and you know, I know people are like either love Splendor or they hate Splendor. I call it rocks, right? I mean, it's just rocks, right? I mean, okay, it's like the most themeless game. It's a pure mechanical game. But the game that was supposed to replace all this was a game called Century Spice Road. I played this 4 or 5 times. It is essentially changing cubes of color with cards. I was baffled why this game got the hype it did. I mean, it was beautifully produced. It had like the bowls, and the cubes are nice, the cards are gorgeous, the artwork was good. The theme was a little weird. I'd rather play the Golem version if I had to play it at all because it had crystals. But it was just, you know, I was like, wow, am I missing something here? And then they made a sequel to it that's supposed to integrate to it. I don't remember what that was called, but that was hyped, and that just vanished. So the Century Spice Road, I don't know. It didn't click with me. I didn't get it. I just didn't get it, and I tried. I gave it like 5 plays.
I agree with you on this one, TC. I'm going to come out and say that this one, to me, has that sort of, like, you get it, like what you're trying to do this whole time is sort of build this hand of cards, but you know, they try to keep turns super quick, as in like you only do a single thing. You either play a single card or you buy a single card. And, you know, your whole goal is to try to buy as many cards as you can of the recipes, but then you're playing cards to get cubes that turn into recipes, and then you're also paying cubes to get more cards, to get more cubes. You know, it's like all these things that, as a Euro gamer, like there's nothing about anything that I've said so far that leads me to, you know, like not recommend the game, you know, just outwardly because it, you know, has those elements. But for me, what's missing is like when you add a new card to like your hand, I feel like you're still playing like 80% of the same turn that you just played over the last 6 turns, only now you add one new thing. And I just feel like that means that it's so rare that I'm really making a decision. It's more like, okay, well, obviously I play this card, then this card, then this card, then this card. And it's like every turn, like the amount of time that I spend before I pick my cards up goes up, but the amount of decisions that I make as the game goes on actually seems to go down. And you just have so many of those turns that just feel like I've got my next 7 turns planned out, and they're all me playing a single card and then getting a single card. And so, yeah, like I didn't see there being a backbone to this one. I think that Splendor, while it is not going to be composed of anything particularly shiny, which is kind of hilarious considering the whole game's about gems.
Yeah.
You call them rocks, and I think that's pretty fair because it's a fairly lifeless game. To me, Century Spice Road doesn't even have the sort of like solid structure of a rock to be able to build itself around. So I'm gonna agree with you here.
Yeah, I just don't get. I mean, like I said, I gave it a shot. There's people who like it, and I get why they like it. It just wasn't for me. Yeah. The next one for me was the Spiel des Jahres winner. It was King Domino. That one.
Yeah. Did that come out in? Okay.
I'm pretty sure it did, unless I really. I'm saying,
like, holy crap! It's listing 2016 online, but it won the Spiel des Jahres from the year 2017. So I mean, that's fine, dude. It wouldn't have popped up on my radar because I did filter my search on BGG by year 2017. So not saying that you did anything wrong, just understand that I'm not prepared to discuss it.
Okay, yeah, this was another one. It was like, again, I think it was just because it was the Spiel des Jahres winner that year. I was like, what? It's a fine game. It's a good family game. I played it. It's okay. I don't think it was up to the caliber of winning that award. And it was just kind of a fairly lifeless game for me. Again, I know people who like it. It just wasn't for me. And apparently, I was like, maybe it's one of those games that lingered so hard it drifted into 2017 from 2016, right? It's like, whoo, I remember that thing. Oh.
Well, it's tough because I'm going to be talking about this year's Spiel des Jahres winner because it was released in 2017. And so, yeah, like I'll talk about that a little bit later. Spoiler alert, but King Domino, I agree with you that it was not nearly as what I was hoping for when I heard that it won the Spiel des Jahres and I played it. I was just like, really? This is it?
Yeah. The next one here is a game I rented. Thank goodness, rented. I think we got board game stores here in Portland. Thank goodness. And it was, my wife's a writer. She likes books. I'm thinking, all right, this is a game with the library thing, books. This is going to be great. It's going to be right up her alley. And it was not, because you could completely rip the theme off of this thing, and it's just a set collection alphabet game, and that's Ex Libris. This was a pretty big disappointment.
Books? It's a game that's about books.
Yeah, it's about books, but it's like, so there's humor in it, like the books are named funny and all that. But when you take that theme away, it's just an organization game. And even as much as my wife likes organizing stuff, she didn't enjoy it. So that should say something.
Yeah.
But
I never played this one.
Yeah, I went into it because it's got a book theme, right? I was like, oh, Chris will love this. About books would be great. And she was just like, like, oh, that's a miss. And the next game on it is by the same publisher, and this one was kind of a miss. I think I probably need to play this one a bit more, but because I think the reason I didn't enjoy it was because my daughter had such an adverse reaction to it, and that was Altiplano.
I was going to talk about this one, so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Altiplano, now I will agree, is a step up from Orleans in a way. It kind of is. I don't know. Maybe I just don't dig the Hale bag building thing. Maybe I'm still traumatized from Couriers with bags of dice. I don't know. I just know we tried it and it didn't go over well and was a little. It was like you move the guys kind of neat. It just again, I think it's just one of the games that it was either a bad night or it just didn't click with the group. Maybe it's a game I would like to try again. But the problem is that I can't find a group who wants to try it again.
Right. Yeah, Chris or Kate called it like alpaca butt.
Yeah, she called it alpaca butt because the alpaca, first of all, when you put this, all it is a giant first player token, and it doesn't hold together very well. So when you move it, it falls apart. So you're like scooting it butt first to each other. So we called the game alpaca butt.
Yeah, as soon as you try to lift the thing up, it just falls into pieces. It's a 3-piece stand that just never stays together, and you can't store it inside the box assembled. You have to take it apart. Yeah.
So it was a miss. And it's just a disappointment. Like I said, these aren't necessarily bad games; they're just personal disappointments.
Well, TC, I can kind of comment a little bit about Altiplano. Like I thought when I played it, like this game is like it's so multiplayer solitaire. Like I felt like it's just there is just so little that you do with any other players at all. And I know that kind of Orleans had that board where you're moving around and where other players are at and what they're taking from you is kind of adds a bit of tension to that part of the game. I enjoyed that aspect of Orleans, but I also disliked elements in Orleans that Altiplano fixes. Overall, I agree with you that it's like an upgraded Orleans, but then it also takes out the interaction I enjoy from Orleans. It fixes the one part of Orleans that just made me never want to play Orleans all that much. And I know that it was a very popular game, but I did not like the way that buildings were just available from the outset, and that, like, who got the most broken building and who had familiarity of what buildings chained together and just kind of followed that path. I think that aspect of Orleans was frustrating, and they fixed that in Altiplano, but they also took away what felt like any interaction.
Yeah, maybe that was it, because Kate's all about interaction. We were just sitting there. She was like, "There's no, yeah, maybe that makes."
This is about the most multiplayer solitaire game that I have played I feel like in a couple of years. To me, there's just nothing in this game that really interacts in any way with any other players. The only time that really matters is in the very last round of the game. Some of the tokens might, in your last few rounds, some of the tokens will start to dry up. And it's just like, if you got there first, you can get something, and otherwise you won't. So I don't like that part of interaction, because it's like the whole game, everything's wide open. You can do whatever you want. And then, in the last round, somebody might not get one.
Okay.
It's just, I don't believe that's like a type of interaction that feels like it feels super fair, because that, the alpaca butt just travels around randomly. And so whoever happens to be in the first player position when the end game gets triggered, and it does seem like it's a pretty long game. Like, there's a lot of rounds in this game. Like, you're doing a lot of building your bag, but I enjoy the way that you do so much. Like, you literally are like the driving force of how you score points in this game is actually taking tokens out of your pool, which I did appreciate that. So, I mean, there's things that I find that I enjoy about Altiplano, and I especially do want to try it with the expansion. But, it's not strictly an improvement of Orleans. It does some things better, and then it also lacks some of the things I enjoyed. But who knows? Maybe the expansion will upgrade it a little bit for me.
Yeah, that's you say is multiplayer solitaire and long. I think that those are the two things that killed it for my daughter. Now that I think you put your thumb right on that thing. And so my next two disappointments are games that I really wanted to play. There was a lot of hype over. I still really wanted to play these things, but everyone got rid of them for various reasons, because they either said it was bad or it wasn't as good or whatever. And so 2 years later, I'm still smarting from not being able to play these things, and I still really want to play them.
So these are like your shame
Yeah.
increase.
This is, why did you get rid of it? I want to play this. You said no one would play this. Oh, right here. The first one is Anachrony. Man, I really still want to play Anachrony because I love Trickerion so much. I love Mind Clash games that, it was a big Kickstarter I missed out on, and it came out and people were playing. I'm like, yeah, I'll play that whenever I'm available in like 2 weeks or so. And then people were trading it away because they didn't like it or something wrong with it, or they were able to, especially with Anachrony, they were able to flip that game for the minis because of the Kickstarter exclusive.
Oh, the minis are huge. Like, I actually, TC, ended up flipping my copy, but not after.
You're the problem.
Yeah, not until. Well, I didn't flip it right away though. I waited months. Like, I owned it for months, and I enjoyed the game. Finding, however, that it was too much like the worker placement, and it was just too much, just like a regular worker placement game. It was like a worker placement game. It was like Argent. If you ever played Argent, the Consortium, it was like that. Only the abilities of each of the different workers were like, there was 3 different abilities, and then there was one that was a wild that you could use as any of the other 3, and it was just a really simple system. And to me, like, it didn't have that much staying power. The main thing that made me interested in it was the modules, and I felt like the modules were, that sort of like ingredient where they were sometimes good and sometimes not so good. But it made me not feel like there was going to be a consistent experience to keep me coming back to it. Plus, I like the idea of transporting goods to yourself in the past. What I found myself doing was, because you get rewarded points for doing it, I would just transport myself goods to the past and then just hang on to those goods for 3 rounds and then send them back to myself. Like, essentially creating a loop that didn't need to exist. Like, you remember that time when Marty McFly gave himself a cheeseburger and then kept that cheeseburger so that he could give it back to himself in the future so that he could complete the temporal loop? You remember how interesting that was? Me neither.
Yeah. But, it's just, see, I keep hearing that, but I'm like, dude, I never got to experience it. I love those. I love the designers, and I, just, So
I love Trickerion, and honestly, TC, Trickerion to me is the shining, it's the gem in their collection so far. However, I have Cerebria waiting to be played. So
yeah, boy, I want to hear about that one.
And that's more the design team behind Trickerion, not so much Anachrony.
Okay.
So,
and
the actual designers. Same guys that work together.
Designers? Yeah. And of course, there's that Trickerion expansion coming out. Yay!
Yeah.
Second game that got everyone was like, this is great. You should play it. And I couldn't find it. Was Whistle Stop. I heard great things about Whistle Stop. Like, this is a train game for people who don't like train games. It's got an empty board in the middle. And you kind of build tracks. It got this. It's a light. Oh, this is great. Let's play it. Oh, you're playing your other train games you were playing before you played this one, and you're back to playing your older train games. And you got rid of Whistle Stop. Guess it wasn't that good. But man, it still looks interesting. It looks cool. There's like was there an expansion for it? I think. I don't remember.
Yeah, it just came out, the Rocky Mountains or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw that one at Gen Con this last year, and I still haven't played it either yet, TC. So we're both shameful.
Okay, yeah, and I
know that Trent from the Good, the Bored, and the Ugly podcast that TC and I also do together. Trent, one of the co-hosts on there, has played it multiple times. I'm pretty sure he's still hung on to it. And Trent moves a lot of games out of his collection. So if he hangs on to something, that's already a pretty big compliment.
Yeah, that one. I mean, I'm still. Let's talking about those two games. I'm mad because I want to play them. I would quit this podcast right now. If someone said, "Meet me in your house at your table in 5 minutes, and then we're gonna play." I'm like, "Dude, sorry, Joe. Bye. I've been waiting 2 years to play these things. I hope you understand. See you later."
Okay, TC.
But I'm not doing that.
Here I am, just like let's give it a moment and see if somebody calls.
Let's check a Facebook chat. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Okay, so that's not happening. Yeah, you had your opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're just that excited about those two games. I mean, I've got a little bit of experience with the one, definitely not enough to tell you whether or not you're on the right track being so excited for it. I do have some games of my own that kind of would fit into the latter half of what you were describing there, games that are still on my sort of like shameful, never played. For me, it's Pulsar 2849 is one of the big ones.
I haven't played that one either. That looks fantastic. I've heard people just talk about how great that game is.
Yokohama, never played that one yet.
I played that one. That's an actual Euro game that Kate enjoyed.
Yeah, Seventh Continent, never got into that one yet. Still have my whole the whole game just untouched, and the expansion's coming in soon. So really wanted to play it. Loved the intro. I actually got the sort of like demo game copy mailed in by a listener, and it was really cool. And I just haven't had a chance yet to get the group together to play. Same thing with Charterstone. Haven't got the group to play that one, that legacy game, or Pandemic Legacy Season 2, or Too Many Bones, which all these are sort of like, Too Many Bones has got, I think, it can have a campaign structure, but it can be kind of like one at a time. It can also be fine, but those ones. And then finally the game Noria. I haven't played Noria yet, but I wanted to try it. So,
well, just think about it this way, Joe. When you do get around to playing them, we can make our own Longview episode because the games are already 2 years old. So there we go.
Finally sort of get infected by the bug with any one of those games. Yeah, they're going to be on an actual episode of the Longview. So you listeners hopefully can look forward to one of those if it really does wet our whistles,
Yeah.
So I guess wet your whistle stop, TC.
Yeah, God, I want to play it. I do.
Yep. So let's talk then, I guess, about the games that I want to sort of like throw up onto this list. Not throw up. I mean, holy crap. Wow, that's like so rude.
Well, I have 5 games that if these games are not on your list, you are dead to me.
Okay, hold on. Okay. So, holy crap. I feel like you're probably going to be able to crush me on this because there was just so many games that were, in my opinion, just absolute poster childs for like games that I'm like, just give me that game. Just give me that game, a group that wants to play it, and the next 30 years. And that would be well, we're talking about my best games already, TC, and I was kind of going to mention the ones that are like not necessarily going to be on the best, but just the sort of like weirdness, disappointment, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't want to say just like I'm going to say this is both a game that I would put on my top list and disappointment in one, and that is Dominion Nocturne. Because,
wow, I didn't even get a chance to try that one.
Well, here's the thing, TC. I think this might be the expansion for Dominion that pushes Dominion into like that sort of realm where it's got so many weird thematic touches to it that maybe you'll be able to push outside of your common Dominion core group, where like you always play Dominion with your one friend that has every single single card and just loves playing. Like all of us, I feel like have that Dominion friend or Dominion, at least people we know that just pretty much play Dominion, and always are willing to play, always have it present. But Dominion Nocturne adds what are primarily thematic touches in terms of its like the way that it does the boon cards, and then there's more cards that you kind of can like wrestle over where like a sort of a card that passes around based on who has last played card of its type. It's kind of strange. It's like almost like a bonus that you get, and it's called like Lost in the Woods. I know that sounds weird to be lost in the woods, but you get to like draw an extra card every turn or something. I forget exactly what it was, but it's like something like this. And then when you play your card that says Lost in the Woods, now you take that card from me, and it's like a permanent effect for whoever it stays in front of. It's kind of cool that way. However, the reason I'm putting it on here for like the disappointment is like I have come to expect this huge level of quality from everything that's come out for Dominion. I mean, even Alchemy. Even Alchemy though. Even Alchemy. Okay. Even Alchemy has a few cards that I would not remove from the collection, even if I have to take a possession game. Oh God, just don't do that. It takes so long, and I just don't want to. But the card possession, where you take another player's turn, I don't like building towards it. I don't like it when it happens to me. It's just a card I just don't like. But Dominion Nocturne has a whole mechanic I don't like, and that's the boons. There are boons, and there are bad stuff. Hexes is what they're called. And basically, it's just a deck of random cards, and you end up just shuffling this deck and like drawing cards. You just get stuff that's unpredictable. It makes your turns go on longer because you're trying to assess like, how do I do my turn order based on what I've just got? Like, what's my sequence of playing? Which usually in Dominion, you're able to sit there, look at your cards, and be like, okay, the ideal way to play this hand would be to play this card, hoping to get cards, because I get an extra action, then play this card next, and play this card. There's usually a pretty good a tree of actions that you can like lay cards out. And I feel like with the Nocturne and the boons and the hexes, you never knew exactly what you were to expect. I vastly dislike that element of the game. And overall, there were some very, very good cards, and I especially like the cards where you replace one of your starting treasures, like one of your starting coins. You replace them in this one, TC. You can replace them with like literally you can turn a copper into a goat.
A goat?
Yeah, there's a goat, and it eats through cards. It eats other cards in your hand. It's like it's a built-in trashing card.
Wow.
The way that they come into the game is like it's weird because they're specifically tied to certain kingdom cards. So it's like it's a easy way to randomize because it's like, oh, if this card's in the game, then yeah, you always play like you replace one of your starting coppers with a goat or whatever else it is, a cursed coin or something. Which I thought those were very cool. Like, like the way that they just everybody started with them and they just changed the way that the game felt from the beginning. But I didn't really like the way that I don't know. I feel like there could be a better way of integrating them into the game because they weren't always tied. Some of them were well tied thematically to the card stack they went with, but some of them were just like arbitrarily tied. Like you get the goat with some. I remember the goat actually. I think was one of the thematic ones. But anyway, there were other ones which, surprise, surprise, I don't remember them because they weren't very memorable. But the Dominion Nocturne was, in my opinion, the first of the recent Dominion expansions where I just do not want to wholeheartedly say yes, more please, yes please. It's amazing. Like Nocturne has some inconsistencies. And did you know, TC, there's a new expansion to Dominion out now? It's like I'm trying to remember what it is even. It's
I try to keep up on that.
Renaissance, something like that. Dominion like Renaissance, I believe is what it's called.
Wow.
It's Renaissance themed. But there's literally a new expansion to Dominion. I haven't even played it. I haven't even heard anybody talk about it. So it's just ridiculous.
Do you feel like I feel like for me, Dominion, looking back on all my Dominion set that I've played and all the expansions, I can probably honestly look back and say that Dominion, the last expansion that really blew me away was Dark Ages.
That's my favorite, dude. That's my favorite of the original.
My favorite one. I love that. After Dark Ages, it was just like it was like downhill by degrees, right? Because I just love the crap out of Dark. Everything in that expansion.
Me too. It's just so like everything feels like it ties around that idea of just being poor, like all the cards just like Rats.
Yeah, and I remember the after our first play of Dark Ages, the discard pile, the trash pile was ridiculous. It was just out of control.
Yeah, like the night pile that's just all unique, a deck of all unique cards. Like, it is fantastic. I honestly, TC, I think that I don't feel the same. I don't share your thoughts about the declining quality. To me, the quality of the Dominion expansions, like Dark Ages, to me is it stands higher than the rest, but that's just because it's amazing. Yeah. I think that since then they've been like, I've been impressed with them. I think that Adventures, you could point at Adventures and say that's got the Dark Ages secret sauce of just being this amazing product. But I do see what you mean. I mean, Dark Ages to me was the original huge expansion. I mean, it's like we're talking about, this is the Dark Ages expansion is what added it replaces your starting estates with the shelters, and those were great. And I just said, Nocturne was cool because it looks to replace some of your starting treasures, but the way that those starting shelters replace, I mean, yeah, absolutely great. So I agree that that's the best. Maybe you'll like Nocturne as much, TC. I don't know, because it does. I mean, it kind of completes your set if you're looking to make it so that you don't start with any coppers and any estates.
It's just that's the thing. I enjoyed Dark Ages so much that everything since then was like, oh man, I wish it was as good as Dark Ages. Can we go back to play Dark Ages? Let's go play some more Dark Ages.
Continuing on with let's just talk about some of these expansions, because this is continuing my inconsistency here. I'm a huge fan of the game, The Voyages of Marco Polo. And the expansion, The Agents of Venice, has a really high reputation according to its ranking on Board Game Geek. But I have not heard that positive response from the community of people that love Marco Polo. For it's a tight Euro, like a real tight Euro where you can open up doors to lead to you being much more economically in a favorable economic position. That like makes you feel almost like you're really doing awesome stuff in such a tight game. And I felt like the expansion Agents of Venice added just so much loosey-goosey wiggle room into the system that like everybody's doing that stuff every game. Everybody's finding ways to what feels like break the game. You know what I'm saying? Like a tight Euro, and you get this feeling like you're breaking the game. And I feel like the expansion Agents of Venice just starts from this perspective of just being essentially broken. I do like the agents aspect, which is weird because I feel like that could have been a promo. I mean, it's like 8 tiles. You just say like 8 little tiles. I feel like it could have easily been a promo. I do think I like the way that goes into the game. But I really don't like the Venice board that much. It's too good. It's just there, and people want to do it. It's like, it's like almost like this mega good spot that, it's in a way it sort of balances that turn order in the same way that the Agricola expansion did by adding extra bonus action cards equal to the player's -1. So that way the last player in turn order could theoretically get first crack at the board, but they don't get one of these free bonus actions. So, I mean, I like the way it works in Agricola. Here in Voyages of Marco Polo, though, like it feels weird when there's a spot on the board that's so good that I want to go there, that it just, in the games I played, it just felt like the Venice board filled up right as it started, because if it didn't, you were not playing optimally. It's just to me, it just did not gel with the rest of the game. However, the exact inverse happened with the expansion to Lorenzo Il Magnifico, which I believe here, I'm doing this based on Board Game Geek years, but Lorenzo Il Magnifico is a base game that did not have me nearly as frothing at the mouth wanting to play it, and its expansion, Houses of the Renaissance, really does, and I much appreciate how that changes the game. It adds like variable player powers that are really fun to play around with, and it just adds a whole new set of the recipe cards that you're kind of trying to work towards in the game, the personality cards. And I felt like these new ones were cooler than the last one because some of them were like early game effects that you really wanted to get off in the early game. And some of them had like limitations, like you can't have more than $1 if you want to play this card, which is kind of weird because like going broke in that game almost always felt horrible, but now you kind of have to get certain cards in play, which is kind of cool. So it played around with some aspects that I really appreciated, and I thought that it raised the game to something I really wanted to play. So I think even some of the same designers for Voyages of Marco Polo and Lorenzo Il Magnifico worked together, maybe the exact same design team, but I really appreciated the expansion to Lorenzo and did not so much like the base game of Marco Polo, which is kind of the inverse of the way I felt about both of those base games.
Yeah, Lorenzo especially, I haven't played it yet, but I hear that expansion to Lorenzo is like, that makes the game, because when Lorenzo came out in 2017, there was a lot of around it, about a lot of meh. I mean, it had the novelty, I think, of being one of the first few Cool Mini or Not Euro games, or Cool Mini or Not game that didn't have minis, besides the Grizzled and a few others.
Yeah, it was when they really started taking that venture into that side, yeah.
But I hear that, and I kind of got some meh reviews, but I hear that expansion is just like, it's like one of those must-have expansions for the base game. And now now I need to play with the expansion.
A couple more games here. Herbaceous. I don't know if you've ever tried it, but like I would signal this one as being a very simple, easy to teach game that has worked really, really well with my family. I'm not saying it is at the top of my personal list if I'm, playing in an ideal setting, but I'll tell you, like you're drawing two. It's kind of like a follow-up to Biblios that's even more simplified, in that it's just about set collection, taking, like, every turn you draw 2 cards. And when you draw your first card, you have to choose, are you going to take that card or are you going to put it in the middle? And your next card goes wherever the first one didn't. And then at the start of your turn, you can take cards from the middle and anything in front of you to pot them into these plants. And it's a real fast, easy to teach, fast-moving game that I enjoyed from Steve Finn, who is just, the master of these type little filler games.
Nah, I love Biblios. Biblios is just so good. Such a cool use of dice, too. It is such a good game.
It's interesting. You never roll them, TC. No, so what are you really saying?
Did you use them to like keep track of the no? It's cool. I Biblios. I love. Unlike Ex Libris, that was a game about books that my wife really enjoyed.
I love Biblios too. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of. I'm just giving you crap about the dice thing.
Riverboat. So obviously, it's a better use of dice.
Yeah. You never roll them. I'm like, you love those dice because you don't roll them, huh? Riverboat. Was a game that it adds an element to what I would call a medium weight Euro that I never thought would belong there. And that is sort of like a card flipping and calling bingo aspect. It's like everybody's like, hey, everybody, you have to place somewhere on your player board next to a spade. And like your player board is divided into the 4 card suits, like all of your spades are up in the left corner, all of your clubs are in the right, and they sort of intersect a little bit, but you're trying to sort of put stuff onto these hexes, but you have to do it based on randomized coming out. And you have a little bit of working space to work within, but the whole idea of it is a fairly standard midweight Euro that works extremely well, considering that you're playing like a version of bingo in it, which is really surprising to me. I enjoyed that, but it's like, I don't want to put it on like a top games of the year, just kind of cool, unique.
Yeah, cool.
Bob Ross Art of Chill. I mean, that game to me is like, it is what it is. It is what it sounds like. Like this game, if you try to take it seriously, first of all, why? It's Bob Ross. And I love it because I feel like they've captured exactly what you want from a game about Bob Ross. Like you've got like a giant easel and a big old thing that's his artwork. And then essentially each of the different elements that you have to paint is like called like happy little trees. And, it's literally called those things. And you're trying to race, quote unquote, race against Bob Ross, who's like kind of automated by the game to eventually finish this painting. So like you and all the other players are trying to finish features from the painting before Bob can, and you get these bonuses based on it. But it's basically just a simple, like a Ticket to Ride, pick cards, play these cards, even more simple than Ticket to Ride. Doesn't even add any color mixing really at many levels. It's just a pretty simple, very chill game that I very much thought did exactly what I was hoping it would do, and it did it super well with a great look to it. The only thing that I thought was a little silly was that at the start of your turn, like in many mass market party games, you have to roll a die that just gives like a random effect. And I just thought kind of like, I don't know why I have to do this. I don't know why the game even like adds. It's one of those where it's like you roll a die and it's like you can choose an extra card this turn, or you get like some other random effect, but it just makes the game a little bit less predictable. And I feel kind of like it's like, well, it's a mass market game. It has to have a die in it that does something like this. Another game, number 9, is one that I have played a ton, and it's just like this super basic, simple system where you're trying to interlock numbers that all have weird shapes, and then you're trying to build up as high as you can, because the higher that you can build a number, you get 0 points for anything on your base level. But then if you build up on top, you get 1 point, then 2 points, then 3 points, then 4 points, and multiply that by whatever number it is. So if you can get a 9 on the third level, that's 27 points, and that's a crap ton of points. I've had a ton of success with this game just because it's so fast, so easy to play. I hate the production of it. I don't know why. Like, this seems like one of those games that needs to be, like, if you ever played like Blockus, it's like those plastic tiles. That's what this game needed to be, and it's cardboard. And I just I wish that it was plastic tiles. I wish that it was slightly better, but I do quite like the game. Twilight Imperium 4. Should I let you talk about it?
Probably. Yeah, that might show up later. All right. Yeah,
we'll talk about it later. And the final one here on my list of I didn't actually include it at all on my anything that I did previously is Azul. I mean, I never had played when I did my top games of 2017 the year ago or whatever. I finished without playing Azul, and now I've played Azul, and I've introduced Azul to tons of people, and I have seen people learn the game of Azul at the beginning of a game night and literally leave that game night 3 hours later having played nothing but Azul, and telling me that they are super pumped to buy Azul. Mm-hmm. It is, having just played the Azul Stained Glass, it is exactly what I'm looking for in that sort of high interactivity, high, it's you can look at another player's board, know what they can go for. It's just that, the way that it does drafting in such a simple but interactive way, and I just think it's beautiful. And I don't think that the expansion Stained Glass, I don't think that it captures that as well. I think that it muddies up the water of what people are going for, to where it's not quite as clear, what the possibilities are for every tile, which means that now you kind of have to look at a player's board before you look at the tiles from the very beginning of the game, because it has kind of a variable setup for every player. And I actually don't like the way that works. I think that that's part of what made Azul something that, I feel like when newer players, when they see we all kind of are playing, we all have the same thing, that's comforting. That makes the game feel like I get this before we move on. I don't see that so much with the Stained Glass one, but Azul itself, holy crap, I've never, ever, in the time that I've been in the hobby, in the 5, 6, 7 years, however long it's been, depending on what you consider me really being in the hobby, I've never seen a game, Spiel des Jahres-wise, come out where just the whole world celebrated. And I imagine that this is probably what it was like in the years of Ticket to Ride and the years of Dominion. These games, a huge game comes out that just takes the world by storm. Azul is that game. And I would definitely put that super high for what games from 2017 you should keep an eye or play if you haven't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Azul, I don't even know what to say, because that barely made my top. It didn't make my top 10, but it was really, really close. And it's just for the reasons you said. It is clean. It's easy to teach. It's a beautiful production. It's people play it. They want to play it again. It's a Kiesling game. So it's, I love Kiesling games. I mean, it doesn't take you don't like Euro games. Yeah, I'm kind of iffy on it. I have a Kiesling game. I'm in. I'm in. It was well, Colosseum really isn't that. I don't care. I can pretend with Colosseum, right? Kiesling games, there's something about a good Kiesling game that just hooks you and just doesn't let go, and you want to play it again and again and again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's at least one other game that I want to mention before we get into our top 10 that didn't quite make it. Mm-hmm. And actually, there's two, but what I really want to talk about is Pericles by Mark Herman. And the reason this didn't crack my top 10 is we haven't played it enough. I've played it 2 or 3 times. Loved what it does. Love what it was doing, because it's a 4-player game. One phase of the game, you're working politically with someone. The next phase of the game, you're working with another person opposite who you're working politically against to do warfare. Brilliant game. The way it's constructed, and there's political fighting and military fighting. Mm-hmm. And it's all set in the Peloponnesian Wars, so you've got all that whole backstory going on. Wonderful game. It was just buried. We played it.
Yeah.
And other stuff. It's I think it's a brilliant Mark Herman design. It didn't crack my top 10 because it didn't get the plays.
Wow.
but and Azul's up there. I like that one. But this is I just wanted to mention this one because normally this wouldn't even make a top 1,000 top games in 2017. But because a video game version of this came out this year and has caused a lot of heartache and a lot of hatred, and people are going, why can't I play a good game of this? I want to say there is a decent game of it out. So if you've played Fallout 76 and you have been horribly, horribly traumatized by how bad they screwed that up, take comfort. There was a Fallout game made in 2017. The expansion came out this year, which makes it fully cooperative and actually quite a bit better. If you need your Fallout fix and Fallout 76 has destroyed your life, there is a board game that's actually quite good. If you like the franchise and want a good Fallout game. So go get your refund off Fallout 76. Forget you played Fallout 76. Go get the Fantasy Flight board game, and you will have a much better time. I promise. So that was my comfort for people who actually played that game this year. There was a game in 2017 that it could give you a small degree of comfort. Public service announcement.
Yeah.
But Bethesda had nothing to do with it.
Now you just have to go out. You just have to go out and find Fallout the board game, and then get its expansion, and then have a somewhat playable Fallout game that's come out in the last couple of years.
It's a decent game, but compared to Fallout 76, it's brilliant. Okay. There you go. No, I want to guess what's on your top 10. Can I do that real quick? Okay, I've already kind of lost because I thought for sure Azul was going to be there. I thought for sure Azul was going to be in your top 10 somewhere. But that's okay.
Okay. I mean, it depends on how you put it up here. But I mean, like I could see, TC, like with some more consideration, it very well is going to fall above some of these games that you would call my top 10. So I mean, you might be right.
Okay. So for certain, Spirit Island's going to be in there somewhere. I'm willing to bet.
Okay. Yeah.
Clans of Caledonia is probably going to be in there somewhere. Gloomhaven's probably going to be in there somewhere. Yeah. And if I had to bet my life and the life of my 15-year-old daughter on your number one, I would say Gaia Project is. When I saw that, I'm like, there's no way Gaia Project is not going to be in your top 5, if not top 2.
So since you got all those right, do I still have to do this show? No, TC just predicted most of my list. I mean, it's the thing is though, like I said at the beginning,
it's a good year.
It was the year, man. It was the year. I mean, I feel like this is that moment where I feel like at this point everything it just felt new and accessible, and like everything was just coming out, and I felt like I could get everything played. And now I feel like so many new games look super cool, but because we've moved into this legacy aspect, like I was still naive enough for Gloomhaven to not, to be like, sure, we'll start a game and get 100 plays of it with the same group. Like that's possible. Now, like a game comes out and it's like, it's legacy. It's legacy. You only have to play it 3 times, but it's legacy. I'll be like, no, I can't keep a group together for 3 plays. Like it's not possible.
So you have any guesses what's on my list?
Seafall. No, I'm just kidding. Like
I think that was 2016.
So you mentioned Pericles, and actually I was thinking heavy about that. Time of Crisis, though, is what I think. Like I think that's going to be in your top couple. I believe is Liberty or Death was a 20. That was before.
That was it's definitely out of the.
Okay, not even remotely close. Honestly, the first, like that's the biggest one I was going to say, TC, is Time of Crisis. Like that's what I had prepared. So
yeah, I think we'll see how far it gets. It's in there. We'll see what it gets to.
Okay. Yep. I guess we'll see. And then Twilight Imperium 4. I think I mentioned that earlier. So those are 2 that I thought absolutely. And Pericles I had thought. So those were the 3 that I figured.
That was a rough cut, and that's only because I only had like 2 or 3 plays of it. That's the only reason that one got cut out, because I want to explore that more. 2 years later, I still want to explore this game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's start off with my number 10. Ready?
Yeah.
Number 10. This was a game that Kate took, a Euro game that Kate took to. which I should have come as no surprise because, Joe, you rightly predicted Dungeon Pets. I mean, you were right on that one. So what it takes is a theme that interests her with some chaos, that's some destruction in it. And that is Dinosaur Island by Pandasaurus Games.
Got this game.
And designed by Jonathan Gilmour and Brian Lewis. Now, this is a flat out Euro game, but what it has is it's got that Jurassic Park kick to it, where you're getting a park, you're putting dinosaurs in it. You got to get security up to keep the dinosaurs in check, because if you don't, they will eat the people who come to see your park. There's this big bag just full of meeples, and you reach in, and that's the people that come visit your park. But there's little pink ones sometimes, and they sneak in, and you don't get they don't get their loafers. They sneak in and don't have to pay admission. It's a Kickstarter game. There's a lot to it, maybe a little bit too much. But it's got beautiful dice you roll that are custom. It's got a great dinosaur theme. It's good. It's fun. It is quite a brilliant little Euro game to hook in people who normally don't play Euro games. It's got this crazy 80s theme on it. I mean, it's just out of control.
It looks it's so unique and cool looking. It's got a very unique presentation because it's like wooden meeples, only they're plastic.
Yeah, it's just little crazy things like that. Little things like all the dinosaurs are different shapes. They really don't mean much functionality-wise, but you still got cool little the Kickstarter first player token was like a wristband you slap on. Like it's one of those you slap and it completely covers your wrist. Little things like that. Crazy little things. Like one of the Kickstarter bonuses like Pogs, right? From the 80s. I mean, they're totally irrelevant, but it's good. It's fun. Kate liked it. I'm running down a copy because we have to go to a game group on Saturdays to play it. And she's always begging this poor guy to bring it. I'm sure he's tired of lugging this thing around. But Dinosaur Island, easy in my top 10. Easy, easy, easy.
Very cool, man. Well, I'm pumped to hear about that because Dinosaur Island is one that I was waiting on this Kickstarter to deliver, and it just did recently. And I've got that. I think I got the 2-player game as well. So maybe I'll be able to try that 2-player variant, 2-player standalone game, and kind of learn the system so I can actually play that full game. It doesn't look like it's too much, but I'm excited to hear about that, TC, because I did not get a chance to play Dinosaur Island yet. So
it'll be good.
For me. Since you're doing your number 10, I'll go ahead and arbitrarily say that my number 10 is Near and Far. So just so you understand, my kind of our number, we'll do like a close to number 10 top 10 list for me, but they're really going to be divided into 2 tiers. This game very well could interchange with my number 6 more or less. But Near and Far does a optimization Euro game together with storytelling in the best way I've ever seen possible. Those 2 worlds actually are meet together here in a way that I think it excites me to read new stories, but then at the same time, I feel like there's a logical reward for these stories that makes sense based on the potential criteria for getting certain rewards. And they're more tied to like banners in a certain faction, and that faction has certain attributes that help you to predict. Everything else about the game, though, is just super fine-tuned, works very simply and quickly, and you get that feeling like you're building up for something and then trying to jump and just sail for as long as you can before you skid out to the ground again. You know what I mean? It's that like it's like you're sitting there like taking the running jump, like you're Fred Flintstone going, and you sail as far as you can, see how far you can get. You dive on your belly and then see, how bad the scrapes and bruises are when you stand back up. So I really love Near and Far. I think that it is a beautiful mixture of storytelling and Euro-style gameplay, optimization puzzle gameplay that will appeal to both people that would be interested in either one of those things.
Yeah, but I would recommend this one over Above and Below any day of the week. It's such an improvement.
It is such a better game, but it did not get the same exposure nor the same sales. Like, it did not take the world by storm like Above and Below did. Above and Below is believe it or not, a better selling game, though Near and Far is pretty clearly, to me, like the better game.
Oh, there's no question in my mind. If someone's like, "You want to play this?" Yes. No, we're playing near and far. Above and below, you can just put back on the shelf, as far as I'm concerned.
It replaces it. But, near and far does come with pieces for above and below. If that's really your jam, you still get those too. So, give near and far a try, though, because maybe you'll find that me and TC have got, maybe we're speaking truth to you. Who knows?
Hey, my number 9. Of course, it wouldn't be a top 10 if I didn't throw a few GMT games in here.
Well, I was going to say, let's check the GMT offering for 2017. That would have been a way to cheese predicting your top 10 here, TC.
And honestly, I think only 3 games made the top 10 this year, but this one made it in there just because it was such an interesting take on the coin system itself, and that was Colonial Twilight, the French-Algerian War, because it was a 2-player coin game. And we talked about this one on the Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, where I was thinking about this one for weeks after playing it, because I didn't know anything about the conflict. I learned about that, the way the underground faction works, the resistance worked, what they had to do to keep the government was brutal. There was like torture cards coming out. It's a heavy thematic game that tackles that war, and there's no compromise on it. And I mean, it's good, but you got to be prepared for it. And it's just a 2-player game, and the way it handles 2 players against 4 is actually really good. Me and Chris have played a lot of this, and me and Steven have played a lot of this. And every time I play it, I love it. And it's it's like an 18xx player talking about 18x. I know the coin system well enough that in the new iterations it's not a lot for me to adjust to. But this is a top tier coin game. I mean, it's good. And all shout out to Brian Train for this one. He did Distant Plain, which was another, makes you think about what's going on type game. So yeah, if you're in the mood for a heavy coin game that really makes you think and grapples with a lot of issues in a way that, the choice whether to do all this stuff is really in your hands. There's, it's there. I mean, all the moral implications of it, do you go there? It's good. Makes you think. And that's high praise for me for a game. So that's Colonial Twilight.
Colonial Twilight, TC, when you mentioned the way that this game evoked feeling in you of the real guilt behind, what had to keep a system of oppression in place. I mean, that seemed like a pretty strong thing. So I suppose I should have said this one in your top 10, but honestly, when you say it here, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense, but I wouldn't have put it there because I really haven't heard you talk much about the gameplay. It's been mostly about that sort of strong feeling that you got, but what you said here makes sense. I understand why it's on your list.
Yeah, I could talk about the gameplay, but I feel like I'm treading water because, I feel like I've talked about before because I've talked about every other coin game in existence. So, so I guess that's why the theme, came out more to me because the gameplay kind of fell in the background since it was familiar.
Sure.
Okay, what's your 9?
Well, I'm going to come out and say here that I feel like this game that I'm putting up here next on my list, it's I really think it's a great game, but I'm almost feeling guilty already that I'm putting it above Near and Far. So you could maybe even say that this is actually my number 10. Rajas of the Ganges is to me just so it's the inverse of Stone Age. It's like everything is the same game as Stone Age, except whereas Stone Age has this way of you put all your workers out and then you do all your actions at once, and it makes it feel like there's a pretty big space for downtime in the game. Raja of the Ganges has just from the first time that you get everything set up and start playing, it just feels like there's never any there never at all is any real space of being too much downtime at all. I mean, you're just constantly engaged. And this is one of those games where I feel like I'm trying to keep myself afloat, and there are ways that you can fall into traps where I feel like I'm trying to make sure that I've always got gas in the lawnmower. I'm trying to just make sure that there's always gas in the lawnmower. There's always because there's so many things that you can do with the dice that you have. I feel like there's always some sort of a move where you can okay, well, if I go here, I can move this up too, and that'll give me that bonus, which then will, you always want to chain together this I get the bonus here, which moves me up here, which then gives me this bonus here. And it feels so cool. And then that gives me 2 more dice, which then is longevity for my next turn. And I feel like that sort of It's the game where you just keep getting a bonus. It gives you a bonus. It gives you a bonus. It gives you a bonus that sets you up with enough so that you now have something to do next turn too. And I think Rajas does that extremely well. It does so with some, I don't know, the way that the expansion that's included in the box works in this game is almost strange to me because that feeling of just having all these cool things to shoot for when you play the expansion sort of makes you have to earn them a little bit more. And it's weird because I feel almost like I'm getting, I'm getting my, the fun stuff sort of taken away from me to start with. It's like that video game like Metroid Prime, or not Metroid Fusion, where like you start the game with all of these abilities and then all of a sudden you get hit by this cataclysmic thing, and then now all of a sudden you have to find all your abilities for the next rest of the game. And it's that sort of like frustrating, yes, you do build from 0 all the way up by the end of the game in Raja the Ganges with the expansion, but like I prefer playing it just with like, why not just start with all the cool stuff?
Yeah.
I guess that's my number 9.
Okay, that's good. That's another one I need to play. God, so many games. They got 2017, 2 years later.
This one's an easy game to, like, if you know somebody that owns it, I feel like it's one of those that's like, people are going to be like, sure, yeah, we'll play that. That's easy to teach.
So my number 8 this is a game, if you talk about games in 2017, this one has to be mentioned. And if the reason it's probably not higher on the list is the same reason it's probably not higher on your list, is that we just haven't played through it, and there's so much ridiculous content in this game. It's unbelievable. And that's Gloomhaven by Cephalofair Games by Isaac Childress.
Yep.
I don't know what I can say about Gloomhaven that hasn't already been said. It is a innovative take on dungeon crawls. I mean, I thought the Descent 2nd Edition and Imperial Assault was like as good as it could get, and here comes this guy going, hey, I'm going to give you like all this crap in the box that Fantasy Flight's going to charge you expansions for. Oh, by the way, we're taking the dice out. Oh, by the way, it's a card game. Oh, by the way, you're going to like give yourself a hernia just unpacking this thing. You're going to explode your brain just trying to put it back together. There is so much I want to say about this game, and there's so much I haven't even found out about this game. I still got minis in the boxes. I'm dying to know what they do. I love the fact that you play your character and it retires, but the story keeps going. You gotta get another character. I've heard from Trent, who I trust because he's a podcasting cohort and he's played more than me. That does get a little repetitious after a while. That you're like, okay, but man, just in terms of a statement of a game, if you break out Gloomhaven, people around you are going to know it because it's a beast of a box. I have never seen anything like that in terms of an initial purchase. And I think it shot up to number 1 on Board Game Geek. I mean, I don't know what more you can say about this one. This is, if you haven't tried it, try it. If you want thinking about it, get it on someone's game. Experience at least a few games just to see what this thing's doing. It's great dungeon crawl, great fantasy, great system. Gloomhaven.
I am a huge fan of this game, and it's higher on my list.
Okay, cool. What about your number 8?
All right, so my number 8 is going to be actually a distillation, a simpler version of a game that already exists. Here I am saying that this was such a huge year, but like really like doing a top 10 TC, I feel like a top 5 would have been like, here are 5 games I could play for all eternity, and then here are 5 more games that are great games, but they're definitely like making me reconsider how I told everybody to expect this to be so huge. It's like, actually, it's not all that huge all the time. And sometimes by taking out some elements of a game system, you actually, what you end up being left with is a much better experience, at least for me, in the way that I saw Caverna Cave versus Cave.
I knew that would be on here. Oh,
yeah. I'm just such a huge fan of this system. I'm really looking forward to trying it with that new expansion that's coming out. But as it is, just as a 2-player game, like it checks those boxes of being a nice, easy-going, the way that the action tiles are available so that you can see them all, and it makes just the worker placement aspect a lot. You just draft an action tile and take it. Some of them have a couple of different options what you could do or a couple of things you must do. I just think that what it does best is that instead of just having you go on these adventures, which in Caverna are just the way that the game breaks down into get whatever stuff you don't get already from the game board, which makes it so that people just don't really care what's on the board or what's not, or at least I don't care what's on the board or what's not. And here, everything that you obtain in the game and build a room out of is then later on possible for you to activate by going on quote-unquote adventures. And they're not even called adventures in this game. You just all you do is just activate the rooms in your tableau. It, to me, is a beautiful system. Everything about it seems to just fit in really nicely to where you're trying to dig out rooms to make more rooms available. I just love the system. I think that Caverna Cave versus Cave is an excellent two-player game. I think that it makes the Caverna formula work for me, whereas base game Caverna has no reason to exist in my collection when Agricola already does that in a much better way.
Caverna was an awesome surprise. That Cave versus Cave, I did not see that one coming. We tried it, and I was like, oh, wow. I guess I do need to play more Rosenberg games. What do you know? So, yeah, I liked it. It's good. I am looking forward to those expansions. It's Ooh, I feel ashamed for not throwing that on there. You got me, Joe.
Well, I talk a lot about it, but it just feels weird when you talk about a two-player version of a game. It's it's almost feels like it doesn't even deserve time on a top 10 list. But no, this really works. So I stand by it.
Yeah, it does work. Oh, it's good. My number 7 here. This was a co-op game I completely wrote off until someone, because it got a lot of, it came out and people were like, oh, it's great. It was like, whatever. And then I played it and I was like, holy crap, this is like the best co-op game I've ever played. And that's Spirit Island by Greater Than Games by R. Eric Ries. This game, I mean, my biggest complaint with co-op games in general is the quarterback issue, where someone can just dump. I've been in so many co-op games where it's like, dude, why am I even here? You're playing the game. I'm gonna go. You just play for me. This one completely solves that because you're playing asymmetrical spirits, and you're taking out the people. It's like reverse Catan. You're taking out the settlers. You're just getting them off the island with tidal waves, and it is so much fun. It is brutal. It is hard. Just wrapping your head around one faction, one of the spirits takes a while. Then you get all these options of moving to other ones. There's an expansion I haven't even touched, but this one was a really nice surprise because whenever a game gets that much hype, I'm kind of wary, but this one deserved it, and it's a top tier co-op game. If people want to play a co-op, there's 3 I could mention. This is up there. This is either 2 or 3. It's not 1, but it's up there. It's a good.
It's higher on my list, man. And
okay.
Yeah. It's weird. I start to my brain, when you said that last thing that you just said, that it's a 2 or a 3, but not quite a 1. I started to get defensive in my own mind about that. So that might tell you what my thoughts are on it. And it's probably going to end up in a spot similar to that on my list where it's I put it in spot 2 or 3 but not 1, and I'm already TC, you can't say that about this game. I'm already thinking ways in which you were wrong when you just said that. So I don't even know. I'm all over the place about this. But now that was our number 7, right? So
yeah, what's your 7?
My number 7 is Pandemic Rising Tide.
No.
The pandemic that has you building an engine to try to manage water that's on the board. It involved in its development. You have Matt Leacock and the geniuses behind Splotter Games. And I think that a system in which every single turn you're building an infrastructure that's then going to continually be pumping water through the rest of the game, that makes sense. That's like Splotter. Every decision that you make and where you make it is boom, matters from the very beginning. And every single future turn, you are going to be dealing with the effects of that choice that you made. And I think that it makes Pandemic work. The other elements that have been added here to me expand the scope of what a Pandemic game can do. It makes me really want to try Pandemic, the Fall or Rise of
Rome.
Fall of Rome, yeah.
Rise of Rome, yeah. A Rome one. There is a Roman history.
It's Pandemic Rome one, which is another sort of theme Pandemic that sort of strays away from what Pandemic normally with it being about disease. Well, Pandemic Rising Tide uses a pandemic formula to mimic the rising waters of the Netherlands and trying to keep the Netherlands, which is technically under the sea level, keeping it dry is a pretty big task. And there's so much there's so much of a game system here to play with, and all of it is done in that sort of pandemic, that sort of pandemic production where it's things that, to me, it just feels strange that there's so much gameplay to sink your teeth into here, and it's all so new and different. I love, love, love Pandemic Rising Tide.
There are two things about this Pandemic game that make it absolutely amazing. That is the variable win conditions that changes, and the population. If you have not played Pandemic Rising Tide without dealing with population, you have not experienced the full brutality of this game. It is so good. It barely missed my top 10, but it's one of my favorite Pandemic games. I really like it. And I wasn't expecting to, because as Joe knows, I have a love-hate relationship with splatter games. But this one, it's good. It's thematic. It works. The water, the population, the variable in conditions that change from game to game. The fact you can't pronounce the freaking towns and stuff on it.
Yeah, Nordu's folder.
Yeah, it's
Flavaland.
It is such a surprise coming after, because there was like Iberia, which I thought was pretty good, and then like a Cthulhu one. I'm like, okay, I don't know about this.
Did you try that one?
I haven't tried it, but yeah.
Okay, I have very positive things to say about that one too, but in a different direction. It's like a Pandemic light. Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know if this whole standalone Pandemic game is gonna. And then this comes. I'm like, I am not worried. Bring them.
Yeah, bring more of these Pandemic games. They all seem to be very, with the gameplay at its core, and how can they make the system. Like you said, the population aspects and things to make the system have legs beyond what you would expect.
Yeah. So my number 6. Now, this was going to be a point of contention with you, I'm sure.
Uh-oh.
But this is my type of economic game. I love this thing. And it's from a designer that's going to be on our next year's list, I promise you, with another game they did that came out this year. And that is John Company by Cold War.
I saw that on the list. I had it in my head, and then I totally forgot to say it earlier. So I knew I almost want to say, well, TC, when I went through this list, I didn't make notes like I should have, but I would have put this one in there for you.
By Sierra Madre. Good luck finding it. I also say good luck finding a copy. But if you manage to get this is I describe this game as everyone riding a mechanical bull. This thing is going to fling you in all different types of directions. You definitely want to play this game if you're thinking about going on a financial venture with people you want as your partners, because you will find your true colors faster than anything in this game. And this game gets a lot of flack because people have not experienced the full game. Because that first learning game is chaotic. It's crazy. That's just to get your feet wet. And then you have your own private companies you run at the end. And if you play the full thing, holy cow, this thing is unlike anything I've ever played. It's my type of economic game where I was like, if I could have made an 18xx game, it would have been like this. I swear to God, it would have been like this, where everything's just out of control and you're just doing your best to hold on as a group and just try to get a profit out of this thing. You're supposed to be this powerful company, but all these things are against you. You got to work together, but how much do you trust the other people in your group? Because you know that they can turn a profit and sink the whole thing. They're going to turn on you at a moment's notice. It is a very different game. There are issues with it. I mean, you got to play this thing a lot to wrap your head around it. But man, I have never played anything like this. I enjoy the innovation of it. I enjoy the play of it. I will never go back to not playing a full game of it. I will take the time to teach the beginning, the end, the middle, and the whole thing. That is where it's at. I'm telling you, Joe, that if you have not played John Company as the full thing, because there is a huge incentive to keep that company together till you can make your own private company and break it all apart. I mean, if you don't play that half of the game, then it's so much more every man for himself at the beginning that it's crazy. But yeah.
So this gives you more incentive to play around with like kind of the cooperative elements of the game, because
it makes it so that you want to work together to keep that company till it breaks up and you can make your own private company, because that's when you score a lot of victory points and money out the wazoo, and you can buy those private if you can get your own company up and going and get it churning. But yeah, it's a great design. And again, we're going to be talking about this designer next year because Root, I finally got a game of that. And I'm telling you, as great as I think John Company is, I think Root's even better. I'm telling you.
I will agree with that.
I mean, that's because we'll get into that later. And we are definitely doing a long view on Root at some point. I promise.
I feel like we're already at the point where there's a lot of folks that have got, I think, into the dozens and even maybe into 3 digits on plays of Root. I feel like it just seems like it gets played so much. I've played that game a ton, and I have not been able to play as much as I'd like to recently. So, yeah.
Cole, I mean, Root's going to be the game he's known for by far, in my opinion. That's going to be, you say Cole Worley, Root's going to come up, but John Company's up there. John Company is a good game. If you're willing to put the time and you have to play with the same group of people. You got to work on it together and figure it out. It's a heavy, crazy, chaotic lift, but oh man, getting flung off the mechanical bull is so much fun because you will go into the atmosphere off this thing, man.
Yeah. Well, cool. That was your number 6. Mm-hmm. And to follow up with my number 6, I'm actually going to interject here a game that I feel like deserves some attention. And this is like the, still my lower tier, still my lower half here that I'm reviewing, and that would be Fog of Love, which is the real game me and TC need to play together.
Yeah, I think that's our unspoken agreement when we get together. We're just gonna look at each other silently, and it's gonna come out, and we will understand, and we will play it.
Yeah, and then we will lock eyes.
Yeah, at least we won't hold that, and then we held hands. At least
no, that's not how this game always ends. You can actually break up in Fog of Love. That can actually happen. So it's not just about harmony and coming together. It is about the role playing of a relationship. It is the integration of romantic comedy, and I don't just want to say romantic comedy because it's a romantic comedy in board game form, but also it's not always a comedy. So there's humor in it, but occasionally it can kind of be a bit of a blue Valentine. By the way, beautiful movie. Loved it. Ryan Gosling, Michelle Williams at their best. Love that movie. But anyway, the title kind of tells you what's going to happen. The Fog of Love is you play scenarios, and each player gets a handful of scenario cards, and then those scenarios each have different possible outcomes that will be dependent on a hidden player choice. So each party, each member in the relationship chooses a face down option, and then there's like 4 different possible options. One of them will be based on if you guys both chose the same thing and it was this, if you both chose the same thing and it was this, and if you both chose something different, if one player chose this and one player did not choose this, it'll have all sorts of different outcomes that all make thematic sense. And overall, you're trying to sort of navigate your way through the relationship game. And I think that it does a great job in further stretching the scope of the hobby to include even more uncharted waters in the Fog of Love, which I think is just a truly fantastic game with beautiful production that I think sells its on what it should. So it's Fog of Love.
Nice. Let's see. What are we up to now? We are up to
number 5.
Oh, okay, here we go. Big surprise, another GMT game. Oh no, hold back your shot. Hold back your shot.
Yeah, what? No way. Yeah. Surprise.
This was a very pleasant surprise, considering that this designer, Chad Jensen, did a game called Urban Sprawl that nobody really liked but me. He did a dice version of it called Welcome to Centerville.
Aha! I saw this on the list and had no idea that you would actually put it in your top 10. Holy crap.
Because it was, we got it like, oh, I don't know. It's a dice rolling thing, but it's based on Urban Sprawl. I really don't know about that. Maybe one of those games only I want to play. So we got it. We broke out. We played it. And there, in terms of a strategic use of dice, I think this is probably as good as it's going to get. Because this way you roll the dice and where you put them and how you put them out to build your little city or to build a park or to get utilities and all that. There's a lot to think about. And the biggest complaint I've heard about this game is that when it's your turn, it's great, but there's really nothing to do when it's not your turn. And I fully say, no, that's a bunch of baloney, because if you're not paying attention to what other people are doing with their dice and how they're placing things on the board, you will lose, because you've got to counter everything that's going on the board to try to get people in check. If you don't pay attention to what other people are doing and where they're placing, and they're going to run away with the game in some form or fashion, you got to stop it. You're limited to your dice rolls, but the dice are kind of wiggly enough that you can do different things with it. So if you're stuck with this die roll, you could do something pretty good with it to counter someone else's point grab they did on the previous turn. Really good, really strategic for a dice game, because I thought, like, you know, like I was like, okay, maybe King of Tokyo is as deep as these type of games are going to get, and I was completely wrong. And I love this thing just for what it is and what it did, and because of that, I'm really looking forward to Chad Jensen's Dominant Species remake, the aquatic one, because if he did this to Urban Sprawl, I am really curious what he's going to do to Dominant Species. Now, granted, he tried doing a Dominant Species card game. Yeah, we'll pretend that didn't exist. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's fine. But to see a re-implementation of Dominant Species, consider what he did here to Urban Sprawl, I'm all in. And if you want a good dice game with a lot of depth to it, it doesn't get any deeper than Welcome to Centerville, in my opinion.
And that was your number 5, Welcome to Centerville. I've not played it, TC, but I would just say that, you know, it's pretty clear that you only like GMT games, because here we've got a game that's not even anything like the other GMT games, and yet you're putting it on the list just because it comes out from GMT.
That's
obviously.
right.
Total GMT fanboy.
I got blinders on. If it's not GMT, I don't care. Maybe a little Fantasy Flight. No, GMT.
GMT.
I got Sierra Madre on there, right? Hey, who thought of that?
Yeah. Oh, TC, I forgot to mention, but like living card games, I would totally say like there's got to be like Legend of the Five Rings has got to be on your list, and I feel like that's I would predict that right now. So pointing the finger right up into your face, like if you didn't put that one on here, I feel like you should really quickly make yourself a note and say really big sorry to the number 4.
Yeah, you may have nailed one. Okay, so what you got at number 5? Right.
Number 5 is my pivot, meaning that I feel like this is sort of a bridge up to the top. So it's not yet at the top, but it's really getting to that cream of the crop at the very top of my list. And that is Clans of Caledonia.
Yeah, it's there. Woo!
Yep, you're right. I mean, Clans of Caledonia, it's it just is so accessible for delivering that sort of board presence map game where even the board, because sometimes you actually remove pieces from the board, it has a more I don't know, like it remains more fluid throughout the game. It just in some aspects, many pieces once out on the board will stay there forever. But basically, what I'm talking about here is a like a build up your own network type game. Terra Mystica, and even I still consider Terra Mystica like the big boy pants version of Catan. You know, like go get on your adult pants and play some Terra Mystica after you grow up from Catan. And here I am saying that, and I know that there would be literally people that are screaming into their fortunately one-way radio, saying, you know, that Catan is a great game and that Catan is nothing. And then people on the other side saying Catan is literally nothing like Terra Mystica, and they hate it. That I've even compared them. But anyway, network building game, Clans of Caledonia, has you collecting a lot of resources and having to fulfill recipes. But those recipes are especially difficult to fulfill because you don't produce until the end of a round. So you do so much build up so you can get this stuff, and then you're trying to fulfill as many recipes as you can, as many contracts as you can. I do like the way all the pieces settle together here with Clans of Caledonia, though the variable player powers are just not quite there. Unfortunately, they're just not quite. They just aren't. They aren't. They just aren't. There's just the balance isn't there. Some of them are crap and some ones are really good. I just don't think that they're there quite yet.
Well, yeah, I've seen this played. People love it. I haven't played it. That's why it's not even on my list. But it's you talk great about it. People who have played it talk great about it. I need to play it. Maybe when I play it and I do we do a, hey, let's talk about games from 5 years ago, you know, and then maybe I got to change this up. But again, it's just on there because I haven't had a chance to personally play it.
Sure. Number 4.
Number 4. I thought this would be fun to put at number 4 because it's the 4th edition. We're talking Twilight Imperium 4th edition.
Pinned it.
And again, the reason this didn't go up to like a 1, 2, or 3 is because it's not quite the ultimate edition to get. I think, honestly, it's one expansion away from getting there because it's got, I still like my tanks, and there's some stuff in my 3rd edition than those expansions that aren't in the 4th edition where you can play the Laziks and stuff. Mm-hmm. But if I'm teaching Twilight Imperium, I'm breaking out 4th edition because the tech tree is so cleaned up. It is so much easier to navigate than what it was before. There's simple rule changes in this thing. The way I can't even think of it. There's like 4 big things that changes, and one of them was a tech tree. There's not a whole bunch of changes to it. It comes with, now I have a neoprene mat to put the tiles on.
Wow.
It's good. It has everything in 3rd edition. It's streamlined. It doesn't play quite as long. It fixes the, 3rd edition had that. If you just grab that one tile, you get like a point, and it's a race to 10, and you just grab, fixes that. But that was fixed in like one of the expansions. If it just, and it comes with all the races that were in the 3rd edition with the expansion. So that's great.
Yeah.
It's a good game. It's everything 3rd edition was, if not streamlined and better. It's just missing a few things to make it. It's those few things that keep me hanging on to my 3rd edition because it's got because you can like explore. There's these chits you can flip and you get stuff where these random things happen. You actually feel like you're exploring. That's not in the 4th edition, but still. If I'm playing it at a convention, I'm breaking out 4th edition. We're playing it. We're going to have like a 5-hour blast. There's going to be great stories. The minis are cool. The storage is nice. The box is cool because it's not as a big, long coffin box. It's like a bit more short and tall. And my rule book's a hardback because I got last pre-ordered and got that cool anniversary hardback edition of the rule book. But yeah, it's good. It's everything 3rd edition was with some little tweaks to make it better. I bring it out to conventions, and I still love my Twilight Imperium, and 4th edition is just so good. I just wish it had a few more things so I could finally get rid of my 3rd edition.
Well, I've played this one, TC, and I just got to say, dude, like, I thought it was fantastic. I thought that the sensibilities, I expected Twilight Imperium to be this amazing beast that just had so many aspects to it that kind of made me feel like I could play it, but I don't want to have to put all of the variables together to make that experience happen. And now that I've played it, it's like, no, there's things in this game to keep you consistently entertained. You've always got some sort of an initiative that you're building towards and working towards to try to get points. I mean, it's like, it's like this game is not, maybe it's epic. I'm not really sure if it is because it feels like people call it epic, but it feels to me like it's a game that's mainly about thrusts. Like I make a thrust on my turn to try to achieve a 2-point scoring and then try to get hopefully another 1-point scoring secret thing. And then I've made this super efficient 3-point turn. And if I can do that 2 or 3 times, I'm basically there towards winning the game. I think that the 4th edition, even like my game with a full 6-player count, only took like 4 or 5 hours. Like it's not like a beast of a game. Like it's like theoretically a game night. It's barely not a game night game. It's barely not a, hey, let's pop out Twilight Imperium 4. But it's getting as close as I could possibly imagine it with, like you said, including all of the races. There's so many different races to play around with in this game.
Yeah, there's 2 things that make this game amazing. And one of them is they took that Puerto Rico element where you take an action and everyone else gets an action too, right? So it keeps everyone involved. And I think Christian Peterson said that was the impetus for the 3rd edition was that mechanic. He played Puerto Rico and was like, oh my God, I got to put this in my giant space epic battle game, which was a brilliant move on his part. And the second thing is it's not quite a true 4X game where you're trying to exterminate everyone because you have those goals, like you said. So you can like make this big push and like get some points, and then you can get beat back from it, and it's okay because you've already got those points, right? You're like, I made the push to Mechatol, I got it, I did it, so I got these points, and now it's okay if I lose it. I still want to hang on to it, right? But it's not,
and then like strategic retreat is a big part of the game because you just simply put, it's not about holding on to turf, like in so many of games of its style, you know, where it's just whoever looks like they're winning is usually winning.
Yeah.
In these like dudes on a map type games, but not here. Like, you know, you could have all your guys stationed in what seems like a very unimportant system, but if it's accomplishing a goal for you, yeah, it's like totally logical, rational for you to do.
Yeah, and it really doesn't have that, oh, cool, I'm just going to turn to my left and take this guy out to my left and completely take him out of the game because the point of the game is to wipe everyone out and I'm the last man standing. That is not the point of Twilight Imperium because it's got that brilliant objective list. And some of those objectives you don't even have to be aggressive with, right? You just like got to do like have so many so many cards in your tech tree a certain way or some other thing, or like so many colonies out, you know, but the big ones are, you know, gotta get Mechatol and hold it and come get me. And I'm gonna put a big target on myself, but the target is Mechatol, not your home base. So you could take a big loss in that game, but you're not, there's typically not an elimination unless you really hate someone.
Yeah.
Like you're the virus and everyone wants you out of the game, which I have been on that end of.
Yeah. Well, very cool, man. And now onto my number 4. You know what? I'm going to say for my top 4 games here, I am going to surprise and shock the audience by saying very little about them.
Okay.
Because, you know, like that's how I want to make an impression. Gloomhaven, gameplay plus theme equals previously impossible. Gloomhaven, holy crap. Yeah. TC said a lot. I would say those things, but like I said, I'm trying to shock you. So that's all I have to say. Gloomhaven, whoa, just holy crap. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I want to see people bench press this game. I'm sure you could get into like a healthy regiment, lose some weight by bench pressing this thing. Again, the amount of content you get for the money is unbelievable in this thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's continue. This shouldn't become a surprise with my number 3 because you called it not too long ago, and that's Legend of the Five Rings, the card game.
Aha!
You got it. Again, it's going to be interesting to see if this one hangs on because Keyforge. Again, talking about future Longview episodes, we are going to be talking about Keyforge because this, from what I've seen of Keyforge, this is a game changer. This has been catching on like nothing I've seen a game do, and because of what it's doing is different. But getting back to Legend of the Five Rings, this could be a game that this is all you play. There is so much here. It could be a lifestyle game, and it is for a lot of people I know. All they do is play Legend of the Five Rings, and they are much better at it than I am. This is like the heavy gamer 18xx of constructible card games. It is that crazy. There is building the deck, figuring out how it works, piloting the thing because you got 2 decks you're dealing with, the strategy, what ring to take. It is an unbelievable headache of a game. There is so much depth and strategy to this thing. I don't even know where to start. I've even after playing as much as I have, I'm still intimidated by this. I am scared of expansions because I still haven't figured out how to optimize my Scorpion clan yet. And just when I think I got a handle on it, more stuff comes out. And then watching people play this at the Fantasy Flight Finals is always entertaining. It's a beast of a game. And if you're into constructed card games and you like building it and you want something with depth that you can just chew and chew and chew and just not chew anything else for a year and you just want to chew on this is it. It is the heaviest, most in-depth constructible card game I've seen. Plus the theme is good. I like the theme. It's a great setting. I'm a little scared that Keyforge is going to eat too much time out of it because that's what I've been playing a lot. I've been doing tournaments on it. I've been getting people to play that, and it's easier to get people to play Keyforge than Legend of the Five Rings. But we'll see. Ask me next year where this stands. But as of good games of 2017, this is number 3 without a shadow of a doubt. What they did when they re-implemented it from AEG, redesigned it, what you do with it, the theme. I love it. That's good. I'm scared I'm going to lose it, Joe. I'm scared.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like it's quite something to sustain, man. I mean, I've played it and I have just all the respect for it. It's really cool what you do in this game. It's a heavy one. I mean, it's like your decisions matter and your outcome is largely based on how you play and not how you built and how your deck is made to run it's a lot like there's decisions that impact the outcomes as the game is being played. And yeah, it's like you said, it was what scared me about it was the things that you said, TC, which is that like this could be a lifestyle game all by itself.
Yeah, and you could like go online and like do some research and like net build a deck that's supposed to be indestructible, but just figuring out how to play it, that's a whole different thing, man. You can have like the best deck in the world, and if you don't pilot it, you're not going to do crap with it. That's how crazy strategic this game is.
Very true. All right, my number 3 is Spirit Island, which TC already threw a bunch of praise onto. And all I'm going to say is to add to what TC said, I've never seen a game that quite matches up its theme to something I'm just personally very taken by. And its theme is just super, super rich. The gameplay here is the same. And I'm going to stop there. Like I said, I'm supposed to not say much to make an impact.
Oh, Spirit Island was such. I've already talked about it. It's good. It's. Speaking of lifestyle games, if you said you can only play this, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm okay with that. My number 2. Okay, this is another one that Joe predicted, but since this is number 2, I think it's going to throw a big question mark. My number 1 is. My number 2 is, of course, I know. Hold on for it. It's a GMT game. GMT game. I know. Hang on.
Here's a GMT game. Surprise.
Surprise. It's from who's designed it here? It is from Ray Farrell and Brad Johnson, and they did another game called Sword of Rome, which I really enjoyed. Really good 5-player card-driven game where if you play Rome, it is a battle to the death. When I heard they were making a sequel to it, another Rome game, I was on board. But what it turned out to be completely surprised me, and that is Time of Crisis, the Roman Empire in turmoil, 235 to 284 AD. Wow, what a surprise this thing was. This came so far out of left field. I was expecting another traditional card-driven game, considering I really like Sword of Rome. I figured it'd be more of that style. But this was a deck construction game of all things, with a board presence, with dice and armies coming in. Oh my God. In this game, you're all playing emperors who are trying to be the emperor to try to, claim the Roman throne, and everyone thinks they're the emperor. So you got all these clans, you've got barbarians coming in. It's King of the Hill, and you're trying to hang on as long as you can to get those points up. You're trying to build a deck, and what's really crazy is there's that many cards to choose from, but the depth of strategy executing those cards is off the charts. I was like, dude, there's only like 8 cards to pick from to build your deck. How could this be good? Holy crap. I was wrong. There is so much strategy in this. And the thing that blows me away more than anything, I don't know why any constructible, any deck building game hadn't thought of this, is that you pick up your whole deck and you pick the cards you want to play, and you put that deck back down and you play them. And the only thing is you have to go through your deck, but you choose how you go through your deck before you shuffle it and choose again. I was like, dude, that is so cool. That is so amazing. I don't under that. Wow. I mean, why wasn't this thought of before? That's great. And then you put like a board game control on it, a very light war game, I have to say. Very light, but very functional. You tie that with it works. Oh, I played my cars are all torn to hell. I've played this thing so much, and there's an expansion coming out. This is but number 1 is going to be a surprise. But in terms of a board game of the year for 2017 that surprised me and came out of nowhere, Time of Crisis is it, man. I think I finally turned you on it. I'm not sure. I know that you were like, "Oh, it's weird."
TC, whoa, don't want to. I respect that there's a lot here to this game system, and I mean, to me, it's like it's a beautiful dish that unfortunately is like, it's got a lot of smoke I need to like sort of wave away so that I can actually get to it, because I'm like, there's things that I don't think are as bad as I'm rubbed by them. Like just the combat system in this game to me is still just so ridiculously antiquated. I would say like it's like a combat system I'd expect out of a game that came out 15, 20 years ago. But the deck building system itself is really what propels that fighting system. And if you're ever doing a battle where the dice are that impactful, like you've probably already made mistakes. So I do think that, like, I mean, the intentionality of the deck building system to me is like just the beauty of this game. And I don't understand why you wouldn't want a combat system that holds to that same sort of, you know, like what people love so much about this is you never have to shuffle your cards. Well, then why would you ever have to, you know, do like an RNG for your battles? Why can't there be some sort of a way to do that? And I think for me, it's just like I want to see an expansion that integrates that. I know that the expansion will probably add more and not actually modify the dice system, because they're definitely, you know, like you love that system, TC. I know that, like, if you were to take it out, it would lose something. And so it just makes me think, like, I'm glad that you love this game as much as you do. I'd love to play it with you, but it's definitely one that, like,
yeah. Well, it was just so unexpected for me. I was expecting one thing and got something else. I was like, "Holy cow!" You know, so there's like, you know, there's little, you could niggle it, but as a whole, it was just an impressive package. It's, I mean, a Rome game with it's just. I don't think we'll ever see the like of something like this for a while. It's just so crazy. And so,
but there is an upcoming expansion. I know it got moved back already once, but it was on the P500. It's been there, I think, for a while, and they just, like, the development of it got pushed back a little bit. I think it was just still in the oven.
That's one good thing about GMT is that if they think it's not good enough, they'll push it back so they can work on it more. Okay, what's your number 2?
My number 2. Number 2 might actually get a little bit of explanation, just because I'm going to say this game and everyone's going to be like, what? You've said all these other big title, you know, AAA releases, and then here comes my indie game of my list, my number one indie game, and that is Iberian Rails.
Oh, I know. I want to play this thing. I just talk, and I look, and I've read the rules, and I see people play. I'm like, oh, that looks so cool.
It's like a merging of all the best things about the game Imperial from Mac Gerdts, where the players control countries if they own the most stock in them, and those countries are basically playing Risk without dice. But it's got a similar structure to how the ownership of companies work. But then it mixes that together with the cube rails genre of railroad companies that start in different places in the map and then want to build out to get a better income payout that'll, you know, at the end of the game, whoever has the most money wins. And then you layer on top of that they're, instead of being the terrain that causes costs to go up for building, you've got roles, selecting roles like that are going to change potentially from game to game, and the order of where these roles are determine the order you select them in future turns. It is, to me, a game that has a beautiful amount of replayability, you know, and just a structure that I love. Like it works like Imperial. I've done all this explaining that I wasn't supposed to do with these early games, with these higher tier games. But Iberian Rails to me needs that explanation because so many people don't know anything about it. And to me, like it has that thing that keeps me interested in it, even into the, you know, into the now the double digit plays. And it certainly is one where after a year, I'm still loving Iberian Rails.
Doesn't it have like the characters that do different things that are really cool?
Yeah. Like role selection, the character selection.
Yeah, I was looking at those. I'm like, oh, this is so what train games need right here. It was just, I just,
and it has just knives that you can just go pass around stabbing people. You just, like, there's a mafia role where you actually take control of other companies, but it's fair because you have to already have had a share in that company, and then whether or not people have access to a role is a part of the game too, because you can like kind of take roles sometimes defensively. So it's just, to me, the whole system and the way that the different elements of the game, it's a super easy to learn and teach game that just, it takes a simple core concept and develops it into what feels like a fairly grand experience. And I just absolutely adore it. That's Iberian Rails. That's by Tony Chen. I've been saying all the names of designers and stuff, but Tony Chen designed it, Monsoon Publishing. And it's you know, I got it off a Kickstarter, and it's been impossible to find otherwise. You know, make an effort to say you want to see this game or you want to try this game, because I think it's beautiful and it has not gotten a wide release like it deserved.
Okay. God, I want to play that game. That should have been my shame.
Boom.
Okay, my number one. Okay, this one took me by surprise, and I really struggled whether I should put this as my number one or not. Because I was looking at all the games I played in 2017, and this by far, I played this more than anything in 2017. And so I was talking to, and I played it mainly with Carissa and in my game group. And I was talking to Carissa, I was like, look, this is my number one. I'm not certain I should put this as my number one because I'm not entirely sure it's a legitimate choice. And I talked to her about it. And I said, you know what? We're doing the podcast. It can be whatever we want. So I'm putting it on here. And so this is my number one. My number one is an expansion. And the reason this is number one, because this completely flipped what me and Carissa thought about the game going into it, what they claimed it could do, and got Carissa doing something I never thought I would see her do with the game. And that is Arkham Horror, the card game, The Path to Carcosa, that second campaign set. Now, why did I put this as number one? First of all, it's number one because my wife now wants to construct decks for a constructible card game, which she said she would never, ever, ever do again in her life after playing Magic the Gathering. So that's huge. And she didn't even want to build decks for any game. Even Arkham Horror told this expansion and this whole cycle. Second reason it's up there is something that always stuck with me, Joe, when we talked about Arkham Horror. And that was it never felt like it was horror. When you played Arkham Horror, the board game, there was no real terror to it. It was like Indiana Jones with machine guns and monsters, basically, right? Path to Carcosa actually fixes that because there are moments in the game where you finish a scenario and you go back and you're questioning whether what happened really happened or not. Because you go back, you're like, okay, this really crazy thing happened. Do you run? Do you go back? Or do you call the police or something? And I don't want to spoil a whole lot, but just say when you go back, everything's the same as it was before. So you're like, it's playing this whole mind game going, is this really in our characters' heads? Is this really happening? What's going on? It adds this huge character arc with Lola, where if you play her, she's integral to the plot. And that's who Carissa played, because it's got an antagonist that follows you through the entire game, which is the Man in the Pallid Mask. And we had more jokes about the Man in the Pallid Mask, because it was a bad card that went into your deck, and Carissa was like, I want him in my deck. He's hot, right? It was just fun.
Nice.
And we played the big box. We were literally waiting at the end of every month to get the next Mythos pack to continue the story. I've gone back and replayed it 2 or 3 times just to see how the different choices affect different outcomes and tried different characters with different deck builds. By far, this was the most game we played in 2017 with my wife, with my game group. We were just playing, constructing, trying how to see the scenarios worked out different. Great story, great character. It completely turned us around on the game, because before that, we're like, yeah, there's not much role playing. Nah, it doesn't do this much. And we were like, dude, we are in. And we played the crap. We bought it. And even to this day, we are looking forward to getting the next Mythos pack with the next story, just to play the arc, to build the decks. Was the Forgotten Age just wrapped up. This was the start of Arkham Horror being our game. And when I made it like in my top 10 and it completely replaced Arkham Horror, the board game, it was because of this campaign that did it. So I always tell people, if they want to get into Arkham Horror, the card game, buy the base set. Forget about the Return to Dunwich. Yes, no. Get it later. Go straight to Carcosa and play that campaign, because it is fantastic. Easily my game of the year. And it's weird. I know it's weird because it's an expansion, but holy moly, it was such an experience and so cool and so much fun. And that's the reason why Spirit Island isn't my number one cooperative game, is because of this. Okay. Because this, it's another one of those games where you can't alpha. It's one of those games where if someone's beating a deck, they're not beating you to the ground with it. You're like, oh, cool, it's helping out. I love your deck build, right?
Excited to cheer each other on.
Yeah, you're like evolving your character deck with upgrades, and it's telling a story with your character, how it evolved. You're getting like some of the weaknesses you get now are because of what happened in the story. So when it comes up, you're like, oh yeah, I got this, because remember how bad we screwed up 2 games ago?
All that PTSD, yeah.
Yeah, it's a game I would love to get with you, Joe, and play. This was it. This is, and if anything, if between Keyforge and Arkham Horror, this is why Legend of the Five, even at number 3, may be toast, because I am never giving up Arkham Horror right now. I don't even care about 3rd edition Arkham Horror because I'm enjoying the card game so much because of this expansion and campaign.
Well, it sounds, TC, like a piece of crap game.
It is. Isn't it garbage? Random garbage. You randomly draw cards. Random stuff happens. It's
so close to your heart here, TC. I can tell how much you love this game, and what you said to me, like, I can understand the beauties that you're saying. I mean, like, really, like, you said the right things to me. Now you just need to find me somebody that wants to play it.
Yeah.
And
I mean, because I remember specifically, I was playing this, and when all this weird, crazy psychological stuff was happening, I was like, "This is what Joe wants in an Arkham game."
Yeah,
Carissa, this is what Joe wants. I'm
like,
telling you, this is
it. Scary stuff, like where you're like, oh, is that going to come up? Oh my God, when that comes up, what's it going to do? Yeah, that's like what I thought was missing. Like you've essentially said the missing ingredient to make it actually a horror game is there. You know, I just thought Arkham Horror game is only right about the first half.
Yeah, and this, I mean, it was right there. I was like, dude, Joe would love this stupid. This is it. This is the Arkham Horror game Joe needs to play.
Yeah,
it was because and it wasn't the base game. It wasn't the first campaign. It was the second campaign. It was because of Path of Carcosa.
Cool. Quick mention before I do my number 1, which is also supposed to be like shockingly short, because that's not what people would expect from me. I'll just go through a few games that I think are worth mentioning the titles, maybe drawing your attention to, but not enough for me to really give much detailed extra stuff at this moment, just not because the games don't deserve them, but just because of time. First of all, the Amun-Re, the card game, which is actually a brand new game from Reiner Knizia, brand new, of course, in 2017, because that's what we're doing. But it's the way that you have to choose. Well, anyway, I'm not supposed to say much more about it. Anyway, it's take a look at that game. Also, Covil, the Dark Overlords. If you've never seen anything, if you've never seen Luis Brui's designs and how they integrate his awesome art, check that out. The Unlock system came out this year. Exit came out this year.
Oh, the Pharaoh one. Oh, I love the Pharaoh one. That was so good.
Yeah, 4X. That's FOR-EX from Hollandspiel. This is a game about foreign exchange. It is an economic game. Take a look at that. Mafioso is a reimagining of Louis XIV from designer, I believe, Rudiger Dorn. And you should check that one out if you're okay with seeing hard-hitting mafia hitman that are actually animals at the zoo. Tulip Bubble is a economic game where you're trying to wrestle with a bubble market that's kind of unpredictable, kind of like a modern art version of that from Mo Ideas. Let's see, the Ruhr from Ruhr Schafart, the second game in the trilogy of those the Cole games from oh crud, I can't remember his name, but Haspel Connect, Cole and Colony, and then this middle game, the Ruhr, which had a capstone release that had a full another game printed on the backside of it that was the Ohio, which is totally worth your attention. Also, Deckscape came out in this year, and oh man, I just feel like I need to keep going down the list here, TC. Just saying some games that didn't get the attention. Sagrada, absolutely got to say the name of that game. Mini Rails almost made my list. This War of Mine has a very intense story. Mythic Battles Pantheon, one of those like all of the miniatures, and it's about Greek gods, and it also has an elegant Euro game and a really cool dice system. The Quest for El Dorado, Reiner Knizia does a simple deck building racing game, and it works. Dice Forge, Codenames Duet.
Codenames Duet, that was a big one that came out in 2017.
Yeah, I mean it works pretty well. It's if you don't want to have to fight with each other, it's a great way to play Codenames. Newsfjord, the game from Uwe Rosenberg, that is the most basic worker placement game. Like just everything about it is super basic. So if that doesn't at all appeal to you, the idea of having 3 workers and always taking 3 actions every single round and not having anything that really changes to change up the formula. But it does have enough like options of what you do inside that basic formula. It just Magic Maze. another game, like a very unique game where you're cooperating. Just so many really great games that I feel like just I was inadequate in my job of putting just that many games. I mean, we talked about tons and tons of games, but man, like there's just so many really good games came out this year. But my number one is Gaia Project. And then I just take my Blue Yeti mic and I just drop it.
I hear that this is so much. But I played Terra Mystica and I was like kind of on it. But I hear Gaia Project is just the bomb. That if you want to get back into Terra Mystica, this is the door to go through. And that set in outer space instead of fantasy is just like, yeah, I'm sold. I'm sold. I just again, bring it. I don't want to pay $100 for it, but I'll gladly play it. And I've seen people play. I've seen playthroughs of it when it changed from Terra Mystica. It's good. It looks good. It looks so good. It looks great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely right there, dude. It's very, very good. Very cool. I'm very much looking forward to continuing to play that game, ad nauseum. Because it's everything I was looking for. So, like I said, my mic is dropped, so you couldn't hear any of that.
Yeah, it's done. It's done.
My number one, Gaia Project, and that's a wrap, TC.
That's 2017. I am really looking forward to it in a year from now when we do 2018, because I'm really curious where Keyforge is going to fall out after a year. That is going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's I don't always watch board game reviews, but I saw one specifically amazing, and that's the Shut Up and Sit Down's take on Keyforge. If you haven't seen it yet, you should watch that because they really captured, I think, the mentalities that I've noticed, like this sort of the space of mind where players are really helpful towards each other and very kind, polite, courteous. And that I think is not common in competitive games. Like it's like
card games.
Yeah. Well, thanks to everybody who's joined us here. Mur is you've been keeping our chat alive. Before that, we saw Norm here, and thanks for joining us, Norm. The Bridge City Board Gamers, which you should totally check out. There are cardboard cohorts, so check out the awesome stuff, Mur. Obviously, Mur's doing awesome stuff, but Norm is the one who puts out Bridge City Board Gamers. Check out his stuff. Also, thanks to John for dropping by here. Maybe you'll listen, John, till the very end of this episode and hear that we did plug, mention you for dropping in and just giving some positive vibes. So anyway, thanks to those of you that joined us in the chat. And anybody who lived through this gaming year of 2017 or who didn't live through this gaming year and is listening to us right now and going to try to catch up on all that lost time. It was a great year, a great place if you got started into gaming, and a great place to just continue to spend the year 2017 living on repeat for many, many, many years. There were that many great games that came out, more than we could fit into this episode, and we already went to a pretty decent, ripe old length of like 2 hours-ish plus.
Secret Cabal length. Woohoo!
Yay! Well, thanks for joining us here on this episode of the Longview podcast here. We're taking a look at the games of 2017 in the year 2018 as we approach the changeover to our next year, 2019. Hope to see you guys on in our chat here, and hope to keep continuing to put out content that you guys enjoy hearing. Make sure, if you are interested in joining the Longview podcast and being a guest, that you check out the Longview Guild on Board Game Geek and just send us an email to the Longview podcast. Actually, don't even just send us an email. Like, just come physically shake me so that I actually hear or notice, because it might take me a while to get back to you otherwise. Come find me and physically shake me if you want to do a episode of the Longview. And I hope that you all have an excellent week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however long it is between these episodes you listen to of gaming, and catch us next time on the Longview podcast.
Nice. See you later.